Hi, my name is Gerhard Schwantner and welcome to Selling Power's Daily Report. Today we continue our conversation with Dr. Chris Kroner. He's the author of a wonderful book called Never Hire a Bad Salesperson Again. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Gerhard.
What strikes me as very, very interesting in your book is that you focus on optimism as a key component for success. Mm-hmm. Can you explain that?
Optimism is absolutely essential. It's an interesting lesson that we learned early on. Initially when I was looking at Drive, I was looking at need for achievement and competitiveness. And there was an individual that we had hired for one of the companies that we had worked with about 6-7 years ago. This person was full of need for achievement, full of competitiveness, but they just weren't succeeding. And we were trying to understand why, what was going on. And the person had left the company, and sort of in the conversation I had with the sales VP, he's scratching his head, couldn't understand it. He said, wait a minute, there was a meeting the other day where we're sitting around the table and we're talking about a prospect that just didn't want to buy from us. And this person who had since left the company had said, you know what, I don't want to focus on this anymore. Let's focus on someone who wants to buy. Someone else at the table then stood up and said, no, wait a minute. This is a chance to educate this person. That's when the light began to dawn for me. There's something else going on here. There's this sense of certainty that the best salespeople have. And that was what I began to explore as the final piece of the Drive model. A person can have all the desire to succeed in the world, but if they really don't believe deep down that they can do it, it doesn't matter.
So do you believe in the old saying, what the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve?
Absolutely.
Is that positive visualization?
All of those things go into it. Really, there are really two sides to it. The person has this absolute certainty that they're going to win. They picture themselves winning. Think of a visualization in sports, for example. It's the same sort of phenomenon. They visualize the meeting going well. It's like before I walked in here, I visualized us connecting really well, and I think we've done that. Similarly, they're resilient. When the door gets slammed in their face, that's fine, because surely the next time they will succeed.
Chris, how to get people optimistic? What is it? Is it impulse? Is it something that you can train for?
It's very difficult to train someone to become optimistic. Essentially, you've got to put the person on the couch. There needs to be some therapy done, really. Most companies do not have the money to invest to make someone optimistic, to help them see how it's going to get better tomorrow. Essentially, you need to look for those people at the beginning of your hiring process rather than to try to make your team optimistic. That's a long road. So you need to be very careful about finding optimistic people rather than trying to make them optimistic.
What causes negativity?
Negativity is typically caused by, well, really a couple things. It's kind of the old nature-nurture model. You have someone who's wired in more of a neurotic way, grows up learning that they can't succeed or having the door slammed in their face and reacts to that negatively, and it sort of creates a vicious circle, if you will, throughout their life. And that plays out day after day after day at work. And so sales is really not a good place to have someone with that sort of mindset. I wrote an article once called Woody Allen on a Cold Call, and you can sort of picture that happening and kind of picture the ultimate, scared person, in that cold call situation.
So what about training programs like Tony Robbins' Unlimited Power? Can people learn optimism there?
Again, you can learn a bit of it if you're willing to do the work, and there needs to be a substantial amount of personal work done to increase that. Again, most companies don't have the money to send all their people to Tony Robbins, but a program like his is excellent. There are many others out there that are absolutely great at kind of helping a person to reframe the way they look at the world. It just takes time and a willingness to invest that personal time.
So the final question is, how can people transform and evolve into a more effective and a more driven and in a more optimistic state of being?
That's kind of the sad part, is there's not much we can do to improve it. And that's the thing about Drive. By the time you're in your early 20s, either you have it or you don't. And that's why it's so important at the beginning of the process to find someone that has that trait. Research shows that it's the most difficult thing to measure in an interview, and it's the easiest thing to fake. And now we're dealing with sales candidates. They know how to figure out what you want to hear, and they're going to give you that. So you need to be very careful to find those people up front, to ask the right questions, use the right testing tools.
So that's why you are in the business where you give people the opportunity to test drive a candidate so the candidates won't take them for a ride.
Exactly. Very well said, sir.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. And if any one of you wants to learn more about Dr. Chris Kroner, go to the website salesdrive.info.
Thanks, Gerhard.